Have you ever felt it? That agonizing, tearing sensation deep within your soul? The one that screams, "I am broken." And in that brokenness, have you ever felt the fierce, almost desperate need to armor yourself with pride, to pretend you're whole, even as the pieces of you are scattered? What if that very brokenness, that agonizing pain, isn't the end, but a terrifying, sacred doorway to a mercy you never saw coming? J.R.R. Tolkien, the master storyteller, the philologist, the devout believer, understood this profound paradox, weaving it into the very fabric of his epic tales. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. His name evokes sprawling landscapes, ancient languages, and a mythology that has captivated generations. But Middle-earth is more than just a stage for adventure. It's a moral landscape. Tolkien, a man who endured the horrors of World War I and lived through the anxieties of a rapidly changing world, poured his understanding of human nature, its frailties, and its capacity for grace into his work. At the heart of this understanding is the intricate, often painful dance between pride, pain, and the surprising arrival of mercy. Tolkien saw pride not just as arrogance, but as a subtle poison, a spiritual malady that distances us from truth, from others, and ultimately from healing. It's the original sin in many traditions, the great no to reality, the insistence on self-sufficiency in a world where we are profoundly interdependent. And pain? Pain is an inevitable consequence of living in a fallen, imperfect world. It can be a teacher, a refiner, but when met with pride, it often becomes a destructive force, hardening the heart and building walls of isolation. Consider the intricate web of pride and pain in the Silmarillion, Tolkien's grand creation mythos. Fëanor, the mightiest of the elves, creator of the Silmarils, is a figure of immense talent and even greater pride. When his father is slain and the Silmarils stolen by Morgoth, the prime evil, Fëanor's pain is immeasurable, but his response is not one of humble grief or seeking aid. It is a blazing, consuming pride. He swears a terrible oath, binding himself and his sons to pursue the Silmarils at any cost. An oath that leads to kinslaying, treachery, and generations of sorrow. His pain, filtered through the lens of his monumental pride, brought ruin upon himself and many others. He could not, would not bend. He could not accept loss or limitation. His desire for vengeance and possession, fueled by pride, overshadowed any chance for wisdom or mercy.
Now, let's return to The Lord of the Rings, which offers perhaps more relatable human-scale examples. We spoke of Boromir. His pride wasn't just simple ambition. It was born from a deep, aching love for his people and the immense pressure of Gondor's decline. He felt the pain of his nation's slow decay, the fear of its imminent destruction. This pain, this love, became twisted by his pride into believing he knew best, that he alone could wield the ring for Gondor's salvation. True-hearted men, they will not be corrupted, he rationalized, his pride blinding him to the ring's insidious nature and his own vulnerability. The ring preyed on this specific cocktail of noble pain and self-assured pride. His breaking point wasn't a sudden evil, but a gradual slide, a series of justifications rooted in his desperate, prideful desire to save his home his way. And then there's Theoden, king of Rohan. When we first meet him, he is not overtly arrogant, but encased in a different kind of pride, the pride of despair, manipulated by Wormtongue. He is broken by grief and age, yes, but also by a pride that has accepted defeat, that whispers there is no hope, no use in fighting. What is the house of Earl but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek and their brats roll on the floor among the dogs? He laments, his words dripping with a pain that has soured into a cynical pride, a refusal to see beyond his own misery. Gandalf's intervention is a form of mercy, breaking the spell not just of Wormtongue, but of Theoden's own prideful despair. Once freed, his pain is channeled into courage, his age into wisdom, culminating in his heroic, redeeming charge at the Pelennor Fields. His healing began when his prideful resignation was shattered. And then there's Frodo Baggins, our small, unassuming hero. His journey is a testament to the fact that even the most humble can be brought to the brink by unbearable pain and the seductive whisper of power. The ring itself is a magnifier of pride, the desire to control, to dominate, to possess. As Frodo carries this immense burden, the physical and spiritual pain is almost unimaginable. He wastes away, his will eroding, his spirit scarred. This isn't a pain he sought, but one he accepted. Yet even his noble endurance has its limits.
At the Sammath Nar, the cracks of doom, after every trial, every sacrifice, every ounce of his being poured into resisting, he stands at the precipice. And what happens? "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine." This is not the proud boast of a Feanor or Boromir in his strength. This is the last gasp of a soul utterly ravaged by pain and the ring's influence, a brokenness so profound that the will finally snaps. In that moment, it seems all hope is lost, that evil has won, because the hero, despite his best efforts, faltered. His pain had become too great, the ring's allure, promising an end to that pain through possession, too strong. This is where Tolkien's understanding of mercy, what he called eucatastrophe, the good catastrophe, the sudden joyous turn, comes into its most profound focus. For it is not Frodo's strength that ultimately destroys the ring, it is Gollum. Gollum, the creature most debased by the ring, a walking embodiment of possessive desire, a mirror of what Frodo could become. He has been kept alive, Tolkien suggests, by a thread of pity. Bilbo's pity, Frodo's pity, even Sam's reluctant mercy in not slaying him. And in this final moment, Gollum, in his desperate lunge for his precious, bites off Frodo's finger, reclaims the ring, and in his ecstatic, mad dance, tumbles into the fiery chasm, destroying himself in the ring. This is not a triumph of Frodo's virtue at that specific instant. It is a triumph of a mercy that operates beyond human merit. Frodo's earlier acts of pity, his long endurance of pain, laid the groundwork, but the final act was outside his control. Tolkien explicitly stated that Frodo did fail, and that the quest was achieved by mercy, by the supreme mercy and grace of God. The pain had overwhelmed him. His individual will was not enough, but something larger intervened. This mercy doesn't negate Frodo's heroism. It contextualizes it within a larger, grace-filled narrative. His suffering was real, his efforts vital, but salvation came from an unexpected, almost scandalous source. And what of Samwise Gamgee? Sam, the humble gardener who often struggles with his own perceived inadequacies, but never with the kind of pride that derails his companions. His love for Frodo, his simple, steadfast loyalty, is a constant channel of grace and practical mercy throughout the journey. He carries Frodo when he cannot walk. He resists the ring's temptation himself, not through superior strength, but through a grounded love and lack of grand ambition. Sam's humility, his willingness to serve, to put another before himself, is the antithesis of the destructive pride that afflicts so many others. He is, in many ways, an ordinary conduit for extraordinary grace. So, how does this ancient wisdom, embedded in epic fantasy, speak to us now, in our world of curated online personas and relentless pressure to appear successful and unfailing? Maybe you're facing a pain that feels overwhelming, a loss, a betrayal, a chronic illness, a deep sense of inadequacy. And maybe, just maybe, your first instinct is to build a wall of pride. I'm fine. I don't need anyone. I can handle this myself. Or perhaps it's the subtler pride of believing your pain makes you unique, misunderstood, and therefore isolated. Or the pride that refuses to forgive, because forgiveness feels like weakness or letting the other person win. Tolkien shows us that this path, while understandable, leads to further desolation. The hidden mercy he speaks of often arrives when we dare to be vulnerable, when we admit our need, when our pride is cracked open by the sheer force of our pain. It's in Boromir's final, gasping confession. It's in Theoden's willingness to be aroused from his despair. It's even present in the catastrophic, undeserved grace that saves Frodo at the moment of his failure.
This mercy might not always be a dramatic, world-saving event. It can be the quiet courage to finally reach out for help, to admit you're struggling. It can be the unexpected compassion from someone you thought wouldn't understand. It can be the moment you allow yourself to grieve honestly without the pressure to be strong. It can be the humility to accept that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage is to lay down the burden of pride and simply say, I am broken, and I need help. I need mercy. Tolkien's world is not one of easy answers or painless victories. It's a world that acknowledges the depths of our fallenness, the seductive power of pride, and the excruciating reality of pain. But it is also, profoundly, a world permeated by hope, a hope rooted in the belief that mercy can find us even in our darkest moments, often through the most unexpected means, and that our deepest wounds, when met not with pride but with a humble openness, can become sites of incredible healing and transformation.
Think about your own life. Can you identify a time when pride prevented you from seeking or accepting help, perhaps prolonging your pain? Conversely, have you experienced a moment of eucatastrophe, however small, an unexpected kindness, a sudden insight, a moment of grace that broke through when you felt most lost or broken? What did it teach you about the relationship between your own vulnerability and the possibility of healing or receiving mercy? J.R.R. Tolkien's stories resonate so deeply because they speak to these universal human truths. They remind us that it's okay not to be okay, that our brokenness doesn't define us, and that mercy often waits just beyond the wall of our pride. I invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. What part of Tolkien's understanding of pride, pain, and mercy resonates most with you today? Your story, your insight could be that unexpected flicker of hope for someone else. Thank you for journeying with me through these thoughts. May you have the courage to face your pain with honesty and the humility to receive the mercy that awaits.